I want to remind everyone that people who have real businesses aren't on YouTube pitching their businesses. Experts aren't on YouTube. I'm sorry to tell you, kids, you've grown up in a generation that's been fooled by the internet, giving you signals that you can do it. It's all there for you. You don't need university, they tell you. It's all on Google. You can Google everything. Folks, you're being duped. Who do you think is perpetuating and disseminating these lies? It's our media buddies. Think about it. You're talking about trillions of dollars and that whole advertisement-based model that they're bringing in every year. From Google to Scambook, ScamTube, the list goes on and on and on. The advertisement-based revenue model. This is they're telling you that you can find out anything you want by going online. And it's a lie. It's disinformation. And these scumbags from Ty Lopez to Patrick Bet-David have come out, and they're part of that crew. You've also got these scam websites, Udemy and Teachable and all this bullshit. Oh, I'm going to teach you a course. It's $500. What? Are you fucking kidding me? You people are goddamn stupid. You want to learn from a course? Go to a goddamn university. Right? Go to the fucking university. There's no, you people out there, it's kind of like when I tell people in Asia, and I tell them, you know what? Take a look around. Look at all the corruption. You people are being fucked. Completely fucked. And I say to them, you know why? I say, you know what? But guess what? You deserve it. You know why? Because you didn't fight. You allowed them to do this. You deserve it. You've sealed your fate. If you don't fight for something, it's going to be taken from you. That's the sad world we live in today. And of course, the same applies to the Western world these days. And, that's a whole nother topic of discussion. People they're confused, the disinformation. But getting back to the main premise here, folks, this whole massive industry, I mean, it continues to expand by the fucking day, right? You've got now, the master class on all this bullshit. No, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way, kids. Get up off your fucking ass if you want to be successful. Do you think people who are really successful have mentors that they go to and pay money? Folks, mentors is kind of a figurative term. It's like your mentor, is Plato or Aristotle or Leonardo da Vinci. Right? It's a figurative thing. Inspirational. You don't go to fucking Tony Robbins life coach mentors and pay them money to help you. You understand? You people out there, and I'm the only person in the goddamn fucking world saying this shit. It's the goddamn truth. That should tell you what's wrong with the world. No parents are out there denouncing Robert Kiyosaki, denouncing Patrick Bet-David, and all those fucking fraudsters who are brainwashing their children, causing many of them to forego a college education because they think it's a scam, because Patrick Bet-David told them so, because Robert Kiyosaki told them so. And instead, maybe some of those people, adults even, where did they go? They went to Trump University. We live in a world of scams. That's the reality. And it's become so pervasive and so people don't even call it out. They call out, blatant obvious scams. No one's doing anything. No one's saying anything. It's a huge fucking problem. And of course, The establishment loves it because it keeps people dumb and confused and distracted. And the majority of people out there think that they know what's going on because they tune into Ben Shapiro, the fast-talking airhead moron, the Mossad agent, or they tune into Joe Rogan. I mean, are you fucking serious? You people out there in the world, you got fucking problems. And it centers upon, the bottom line is everything centers upon getting a good education. I don't care what the fuck anybody says. So many people out there are disillusioned and so easy to dupe because they don't have a proper foundation of critical thinking. And that's one of the best things university can provide you with, is a sound foundation to think. So people don't have a perspective. They don't have any knowledge on anything. They have never come across intellectuals. Say, if they had gone to a university, they would have many college professors. So therefore, think about it. They're fooled by people like Ty Lopez and Patrick Bet-David. This is the fucking core problem, folks. This is the core problem. In the past, decades ago, before the internet, and the internet, once again, I've been saying this for years, and I'll always say this because I don't think it's going to change. The internet has been the single most devastating and worst innovation in human history. That's fact. It's the opposite of what you've heard. And now, of course, this AI bullshit, you all think it's on your side? Are you fucking stupid? Are you fucking kidding me? AI is going to fuck all you people. You're fucked. AI, the first phase of AI, folks, is all about ad-based content. You understand? Ad-based content and automating low-level jobs. That's what it's about. The corporations love AI because they can fuck you. They can swindle you. And they can replace your jobs. Think about it. With this chat GPT bullshit, all it is a goddamn little assistant that summarizes shit. Oh, it's so amazing. No, it's not. It's fucking simple. It's not amazing. I saw an ad on ScamTube the other day. My ad blocker's not working as well. YouTube, by the way, you can tell Google is struggling. Okay? Google is struggling with their fucking earnings and their sales. It's obvious just watching YouTube what's going on. YouTube has become so desperate now to pump those ads, get through the ad blockers, right? They are desperate. But there's an ad now I saw. Some girl is advertising a website where you can actually subscribe for a monthly fee for AI to generate books. She's an author. She's just going to generate books in 10 minutes. You understand, folks? This shit was going on 10 years ago during the earlier stages of the digital nomad swindle. I actually found a guy on YouTube, an Australian guy, and I fucking chewed his ass out because he was so proud telling people how he was making money on Amazon by creating, and he got this idea, basic general idea from Johnny FD, the fucking fraud. And of course, this Peter Levels. Folks, ask yourself why Peter Levels, a fucking nobody swindler, who you go on his fucking Twitter and he tells you, I'm making this much money every month in my books, this much. Folks, anyone who comes out and tells you, I'm making this much, they're lying. They're fucking lying. Nobody tells you anything. Who does this? It's called a confidence game. It's played by con artists. And this little Peter Levels guy who's been swindling people now for 15 fucking years on the digital nomad swindle, guess what? He gets promoted, interviewed by Lex Friedman. Why is that? Maybe they're related by blood. You got it, folks? You got it? Speaking of that tribe, by the way, I came across a couple of books recently, just last night. One of them is by Mr. Jack Bernstein. I suggest you check him out. Some of you probably already know it. It's actually amazing. The book I came across a PDF copy. It's a pretty short book, like 50 pages, and he basically exposes. He's a Jewish American guy who moved to Israel. I think it was, I don't know, during World War II or something. He claims because of propaganda that was brainwashing people to get them to move to Israel. Anyway, you can read about that. He exposes Israel, and apparently he was murdered sometime after he released the book. And of course, there's also Benjamin Friedman. He's another Jewish guy who exposed a lot of things. And of course, Friedman, most of you are probably aware of. It's kind of interesting. Of course, if you talk about, the findings, their book, if you talk about, let's say, summarize the book, guess what? Guess what's going to happen to you? You understand what's going on, right? Anyway, I actually just released some stuff on my site for to kind of remind people about the great American Patrick Buchanan, who really, Donald Trump, he was bashing back in the 90s, calling Buchanan he used to call Buchanan, because Buchanan should have been president. If Buchanan was president, things would have been a lot different. But of course, Buchanan this is during the period when Ross Perot was running for president as well as an independent. And of course, if you go back to that time, if you're old enough, you probably only really remember Ross Perot. You might remember Buchanan once you mention the name, but Buchanan was sidelined. And Ross Perot, he got most of the attention by the media because it was easy for the media to make fun of him. His country accent, little short guy with a little country accent, pull up a board and show you by charts. They would make fun of him that way to kind of discredit him because, of course, Ross Perot was against NAFTA. He warned about NAFTA. But Patrick Buchanan was as well. Patrick Buchanan ran in the Republican primaries, 92, 96, and he got shut out. And they really didn't pay much attention to, they kind of sidelined him because Ross Perot is easier to make fun of, obviously. There's things you can just kind of pull out of your hat there. But you can't make fun of Patrick Buchanan. See, Patrick Buchanan was an insider. The Nixon administration, Reagan administration, speechwriter. He was also a political commentator on TV. And, he was also a devout Catholic. And so being a religious man, he understood that the spirituality of America was very important, and that America was founded on Christian principles. This whole, of course, you're hearing a lot of propaganda, and the politicians will be the first to come out and tell you, our American Judeo-Christian principles, foundation. No, there's no Judeo. It's fucking Christian, okay? It's all a bunch of nonsense with this Judeo-Christian. I'm so sick of hearing that bullshit. It's not Judeo-Christian. American is founded on Christian principles. So, of course, he highlighted, and I actually wrote about this in my book in 2006. I wrote about a lot of things about the society, the breakdown, but of course, I didn't want to talk too much about it. I didn't want to get banned, which I did. Anyway, and of course, the emphasis is more economic. But Patrick Buchanan also was very much against NAFTA. He was very much against getting involved in these foreign wars. And, when you look at it, me and Patrick Buchanan actually share a lot in common in terms of our core views, which I think a lot of Americans these days also share these things in common because they've kind of woken up a little bit as to what's going on. And it's really any patriotic person of any country is going to have the same views. And that is, number one, you don't send jobs out of your country to other countries, to other places. It's just treason. You don't do that. And, I could get into a whole discussion about that, how it's actually taxpayer fraud. Right? It's what it is. It's taxpayer fraud. Maybe I'll talk about that some other time. But, and the other thing is, of course, you don't open your borders and just let everybody come in. You have to have a process. And in the West, we have a process. You go to these developing countries, you don't have a fucking chance. They're not going to let your ass in. You can't become a citizen. You try and become a citizen in some of these other countries, they're going to tell you to go fuck yourself. It's virtually impossible in most of these other countries. Okay, you all do know that, right? And not only is it virtually impossible, why would you want to become a citizen in a developing country? What benefits do you get? Ask yourself, who's trying to become a citizen where? Do you have a ton of Western citizens trying to get citizenship in developing countries, or is it the opposite? It's the opposite. You've got people, and this has been going on for hundreds of years, risking their lives. Every year, millions of people around the world from developing countries risking their lives to get into the West. Why? Why is that? You don't have people risking their lives from America, from Canada, from Australia, from Europe, to get into developing countries. One reason is because these people in the West are free. They're free to go into these countries. Some countries, they're not really free to get out. In case you all don't know that. Okay? Why are these people going from developing countries, whether it's South America, Africa, Asia, why are they risking their lives and have been for a very long time to get into the West? Why? Ask yourself. When you hear scam artists like Andrew Henderson, nomad capitalists, feed you all this fucking horse shit, right? Why? Why are they doing that? Because it's opportunity, folks. Opportunity. First and foremost, it's the opportunity to provide their kids with higher education. Now, the typical response you're going to hear, especially from Americans, oh, higher education sucks. What are you talking about? Oh, da, 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 da. You know you're dealing with an uneducated idiot. Yeah, the education in America, in the West, has progressively gotten worse over the decades. Generally speaking. But there's some nuances to that. Number one, you don't need to have a full population of really well-educated people. The cream always rises to the top, you understand. When you're talking about the best school systems, the very best at the top, the very best university systems especially, you're talking about the Western world, you're talking about America. America has the best universities in the world. Are there some shit universities in America? You better damn well believe there are. There's a whole lot of them. Right? You understand what I'm saying? Anybody that doubts that just doesn't have a fucking clue about anything. You don't have any credibility. You don't understand innovation, research and development, technology. You don't understand where all this stuff comes from. I do. You don't have to have a master's in chemistry and physics from an Ivy League university like I do to understand this. It's common sense. Okay? So yeah, relatively speaking, it's more difficult for the average person to get as much of a quality education in America than it was 30, 40, 50 years ago. Sure. But our education system is still better than developing countries. It's that simple. Okay? Now, and I can just tell you right now, you imagine some ghetto people, like, and if you want to see some ghetto people, like people that are just fucking basically barbarians, go on ScamTube and look at some of these videos of, and I'm not even talking about the retail theft. People just kind of walking into taking stuff. There's not, I'm talking about like some of these fights that occur in McDonald's and these places. Okay, these types of people, you go on and you've probably seen some of those videos, some just outlandish, crazy things in America. These people, I kid you not, you may think that they're like just unemployable and completely fucking stupid and ridiculous. Okay, fine. Okay, probably so in most cases. But guess what? Those people are going to be fairly competent, depending upon what we're talking about, in developing countries in terms of in the workforce. That's right. Believe it or not. I'm not kidding you. And the reason why is because they've gone through higher education. Well, I shouldn't say higher education, but it is higher education versus developing countries. Folks, you're talking about an education system, no matter how bad it is in the West, it's built upon the framework of Western civilization, critical thinking. Okay? So they're going to have skills that only the cream of the crop in developing countries are going to have. They're going to be, believe it or not, more equipped, more qualified, more capable of doing some basic things than people in developing countries. I'm telling you, I've seen it too many times. Okay? That's the reality. And when you're talking about some of these countries, let's say India or China, they've got 2 million engineers. And you got to understand something. The definition of what an engineer is and what a doctor is very different in these countries. The bar is much lower, okay? Because the standards are much lower. And that's why the research, development, and innovation comes from the West. The only exception, really, for the most part, I mean, there's little pockets, there's always going to be a few things here and there. But for the most part, the only relatively significant contribution would be from Japan, and a little more increasingly from South Korea. But that's only because they have engaged in legal, I guess for the most part, technology transfer, technology licensing, that is South Korea, from the U.S. for several years now. So they were learning from that. And the reason why the Japanese have been successful is because, well, America lifted them up, right? So they have been, they've been working with America, research, business for a long time. So they have learned, okay? You folks, you got to understand something. Go back in history. And it seems crazy when you think about it, but just think about it for a second. These countries around the world, no matter where you go today, for the most part, unless it's really isolated, you go to, let's say, a metropolis, you're going to see tall buildings. You're going to see, let's say, the majority of places, you're going to see decent roads, a roadway system, right? Where did these countries learn that technology? Of course, now it's you don't think about it as technology, but where do you think it came from? They learned how to build buildings and roads from the West. You all do understand that, right? Probably some of you don't know that. They learned from the West. The West has always led the world, let's say at least since let's say, I guess ancient Egypt would not be the West. That whole designation didn't really exist back then. But for the most part, during the modernization of man, it's been the Western civilization that has come up with just about everything. Okay? So, getting back to the main point here, if you got kids, you don't want to move to a developing country from the West. Unless you want to fork out 30, 40, 50 grand every year for every kid, K through 12. And even then, you're probably still not going to get as good of an education. You might get a good one. Just depends upon where you are. That's one thing. Now another thing, let me just tell you, and I should actually pull up the right picture here because I'm talking about this topic. Let's see here. Let me get to the right picture because this is the Andrew Henderson nomad capitalist fucking fraud we're talking about essentially here. Let me get his picture if I can find it. I got so many here. Yeah. Remember, this is not a guy who, folks. The pretentious people are the scammers. You know, the guys that they smile. They seem like a nice guy. Those are the ones you want to avoid. Okay. This guy comes across like he's an aristocrat, an Ivy League graduate. No, he went to Arizona State University, is always on the top party schools list, and he fucking flunked out. He flunked out of a shitty ass school, of a tier 3 fucking school. He flunked out, was a pool cleaner. And he jumped upon the bandwagon, the Doug Casey, Peter Schiff, doomsday, America's going to collapse bandwagon 15 years ago. That movement was created after the financial crisis. I know all about this shit. I was front and center watching everything as I was banned. Remember, I'm the guy that predicted all this stuff. And I've been, marginalized. I don't exist. And when you see what happened to Patrick Buchanan, by the way, you can probably understand why now, more so. Patrick Buchanan, getting back to him, I'll get back to this fraudster here in a second, but Patrick Buchanan, he's an insider, as I mentioned, right? And by the way, this is kind of I'm testing this streaming software because it got cut off. The earlier one just shut down. And so I updated it. I don't know if that was the issue or not. Hopefully it won't do that. It might. So I'm just kind of rambling to test the software, but hopefully you're learning something. Patrick Buchanan, as I mentioned in the other video or stream, he served in the Nixon administration, was a speechwriter, moved up the ranks, was in the Reagan administration, and a very successful political commentary person, had several associations. He learned a lot throughout the years. And once again, Patrick Buchanan, during a period, the transformation in America, at least let's say the most recent kind of paradigm shift, I believe, I could be wrong. I mean, it's all relative, right? I mean, someone could say, well, it occurred in the 60s, when all the welfare was passed, right? In terms of kind of societal, and all this is connected, of course, but you think back to the 1990s, Bill Clinton. I think this was a paradigm shift in U.S. society. But this is when Patrick Buchanan ran for president. During that period, we were trying to pass, well, not we, but the establishment wanted to pass the Free Trade Agreement, North American Free Trade Agreement, which, of course, I wrote about extensively 20 years ago in my landmark book. It was the center point of that book, how it's destroyed America, right? And so Buchanan was against free trade. He talked about how it was going to destroy America, how all these things that you're seeing today were going to destroy the U.S. And guess what? Donald Trump, I believe, ran for presidency, or he tried early on in 2000. At this point, Buchanan realized he wasn't going to ever get a Republican nomination. He ran twice, and, he got shut out by, Bob Dole and someone else. But so he ran in the Reform Party, and then Trump also ran, I think, in 2000. And during that period, even before that, Trump was coming out and trashing Buchanan, calling Buchanan, all these names. Oh, he's a Nazi. He's an anti-Semite, right? He's a racist. And Donald Trump completely flip-flopped and basically stole Buchanan's campaign platform from the 90s in 2000. And he used that to win the election in 2016. That's the remarkable thing. Donald Trump will just do whatever. He's a fraud. He'll say whatever and do whatever. And of course, Donald Trump, unlike Pat Buchanan, Donald Trump is working with, he's obviously let's just say he's a very close ally with Israel, just like every other politician, right? Which explains why all this money is going to Israel. Explains why Donald Trump is deporting people who are protesting the war between Israel and Palestine. You understand? And I predicted all this back in 2016 before he won. I knew all this. I called him, it's on my site. It's pretty obvious. Folks, the real people, the heroes, the people who are there for you they're not going to win an election. They're not going to be permitted to. You got to understand that. Just like the people who are knowledgeable and honest trying to help you, they're not going to get exposure ever. You got to understand that. That's the way it works. Patrick Buchanan is a perfect example. He was an insider. Think about it. He had forged so many relationships over decades, including with, the people who run the country. You know who they are. Yet, look what happened to him. He was marginalized, and thinking back, I don't even remember a whole lot of Patrick Buchanan. I remember a little bit now, but he was sidelined. Because, and you should go and look into it. And he wrote a book, I think, in 2012, after my book, of course, which called Suicide of a Superpower. And it, to my knowledge, I haven't read the book. To my knowledge, it was more cultural, but also talked about free trade and things of that nature. So, after that book, he lost his job on MSNBC. That was it for him. Because he had a chapter in the book, I believe, called The End of White America. And that was it for the people that run the media. You understand what's going on. And you all understand what I'm talking about. There's this group of people, and you can't even talk about who they are. I mean, they're so scared for people to understand their power. And they're proving their power by censoring you. You can't even say it. That's how bad it's gotten. This group of people is behind all these problems. Everywhere they go, they create the same problems because it weakens society, enables them to take over and defraud and scam the country. When you destroy the base of the country, the foundation, then it's easier to subvert them. And this is what this group has been doing for a very long time. And, this group of people it's not every single person, obviously, but it's a very large group of people. And I call it a mafia. And they're not even who they say they are. Their origins are not even what they say they are. But they use that as a shield. Okay, I'm not going to get into that. You can look into that. I can't say it. I can't be specific because, this is ScamTube, of course. You know who runs ScamTube. Folks, the one thing you got to understand, you got to accept. Once you accept this, and this is from, once again, ask yourself about the person that you're listening to. How credible is that person? Is the person intelligent? Are they educated? Are they well informed? Do they have a history, a track record of good judgment, of getting things right, of seeing things that other people perhaps don't see? Do they have, and then ask, what's their agenda? Are they pitching this narrative to make money? No. My credibility is for you to go ahead and check for yourself. I think I've got amongst the highest credibility out there. I'm not selling nothing. You see? No agenda other than the truth. That's it. And the fact is this. So if you believe my judgment, right? That's why I say the most important thing you can do is to familiarize yourself with my track record, my credibility. Save you a lot of time and probably save a lot of things in your life. Steer you clear from all the frauds. Most important thing you got to understand as fact, and I'll stake my life on it. I've lived this. I have firsthand experience. And that is the following. If you are honest and credible and you report the truth and cannot be bought off, you're going to be shut down. Because you doing so, you reporting the truth, using your expertise, threatens the pocketbook of those who control the show. That's the reality. And the second thing is, you're never going to see a politician who's truly for the people who's going to have a chance at winning an election. It's not going to happen. You got to understand who controls the elections. Okay? They're never going to let that happen. What they do is they make you think it's going to happen. Just like people think Donald Trump is going to save them. Just like people thought Biden was going to save them and Obama was going to save them. You understand? You go back and, it's like people don't realize until they're too old to care or to do anything about it. They realize once they're in their deathbed, basically, they realize it's all a fucking scam. That the whole political system is a scam. There's no real democracy in America. They're all full of shit. I'm just telling you right now, folks, this is the reality. Anyone who has exposure has got it for the right reason. And the right reason doesn't have anything to do with you. Not good anyway. The right reason is because they represent the establishment and or the scammers out there who are part of the establishment, by the way. They're not there to help you. People who are credible, reporting the truth, are not going to ever get exposure. I'm a great example of that. Patrick Buchanan is a great example of that. I mean, think about it. Patrick Buchanan was in the system. He was an insider. His fucking household name. Household fucking name. Ran for president 3 times. Okay? He had some of the most successful shows on TV, political commentary. It's a major legend, this guy. And, people don't even know who he is now. Haven't for a long time. Because this is what happens when you think about it. He had already a large amount of exposure, credibility. People knew him. So, it's a little bit different with him, the way they take him down. Me, they never gave a shot. They never gave me a chance. You see? anyone who has exposure, they're not on your side. You better fucking believe that. That's the truth. That's the way the world works. Sorry to disappoint you in your ideals, your dreams, your delusions about America's democracy and freedom of speech and press and all that bullshit. If you believe in that, then you probably believe in the Tooth Fairy and Santa Claus. Okay? It's a very sophisticated apparatus, the way that they mask everything. If you go to developing countries, you're going to think that you have democracy in your Western country and freedom. Just because in developing countries, it's so fucking obvious what's going on. They don't even try to hide it. They don't have the means. They don't have the sophistication to hide it. And they don't need it because the people are not sophisticated, generally speaking, because of the education system. You see? That's how the control is wielded on these people in developing countries is by not educating them. That's fact. That's the main control in the developing world, is keeping people kind of ignorant and not thinking, not having a foundation for critical thinking. If you have a foundation for critical thinking, and it's also part of like many of these countries, especially in Asia, the Buddhist mentality, they're not so worried. They don't think about the future so much, especially countries like Thailand. They're just worried about today. So if you don't have critical thinking, you're not going to actually sit down and think about things and detailed thinking about what is actually going on in your country. Why can people not afford real estate, for instance, in some of these countries, right? Or, why people are neck deep in debt, right? So you got to understand, everyone with exposure, and I'm just telling you right now, folks, even if you're naive and stupid, if you understand this will lead you to the truth. Because once you understand these people with exposure, they're not on your side, then that will cause you to dig deeper and start looking into things more closely and pay more close attention. And you can get through it and you'll realize that they're frauds. That's the way it works. It's the way it works, because who controls exposure? The media. What's the media? The media is not just the networks, the internet. It's the ad agencies, right? It's publishers. It's everything. It's one big fucking network. No one ever is going to be elected to a political position who's on the side of the people. Ever. They're going to claim that they are, and it may look like that they are. You're going to be fooled. Okay? Just remember, folks, and I can tell you right now, I don't claim to have a crystal ball, see the future, but I can tell you what's going to happen with Donald Trump. If you look back, say 30 years from now, you look back into this period, what happened from this period, yeah, there's some things that changed a little bit. But was the country restored, truly? Was it really restored? Did Trump do the things he said he was going to do? No, he's not going to. What is restoration of the country? Restoration of the country is providing affordable, accessible health care to people. I'm not saying everybody should get complete medical care for free. I'm not saying that. Right? But a basic level of care. And to be quite honest, America's so-called free market healthcare system is a complete fucking scam. It's a complete fraud. It needs to go away. Need universal healthcare. That's the only solution. It's a whole other topic of discussion. But also, they need to do something about the border and immigration. And I'm talking about something that's permanent. And remember, Trump didn't build a wall his first term. There was no fucking wall. Okay? Who is he focused on deporting now? People who protest against Israel. I mean, really? I mean, come on. And of course the trade issue. And I'm talking about going back 40, 50 years and undoing all these things. I wrote in my book 20 years ago, and I whitewashed the fuck out of it because I had experience, direct experience as a person in science, in laboratories, with, for instance, what I noticed, Chinese nationals. And I'm thinking to myself, this guy is going to go back to his country and take the knowledge that he got from my country. And that's wrong. Even back then I was thinking this. And I wrote something about it in my book. Okay? Are we going to go back to the period where we don't allow Chinese and other grad students from other countries to come into our universities and tap that knowledge and go back home? Are we going to dismantle all these operations overseas from U.S. corporations? Understand, folks, anytime Apple or Microsoft or any of these companies from the U.S., they open a facility overseas, you got to understand, that's taxpayer fraud. Anytime a university allows a foreign student in, that's taxpayer fraud. You understand that, right? You all understand that. Not to mention, of course, all these ridiculous fucking wars, which is easier for people to see. We have no business getting involved with. None of this is going to change. 30 years from now, you look back, Trump isn't going to change any of this shit. I can guarantee you that. And you're going to hear, oh yeah, they want to get rid of him. Oh yeah, just like you heard during the first campaign, how the media was against Trump, right? Remember that? Oh, the media, they hate him. Look at how they're treating him. Trump is the media. He's part of the media. Dummies. People are so fucking naive. They're so fooled. Folks, once again, it's easy. Just remember these golden fucking rules. Nobody who's honest, insightful, credible, who's going to tell you the truth about things that really matter is going to ever get exposure. And I'm a perfect example of that. I was shut down from the very fucking beginning. And I warned about free trade. I predicted all these things. Healthcare, financial crisis, everything. And the second thing is, nope, it doesn't. That's why I say you shouldn't vote. It doesn't matter to vote. It's worthless. You're supporting a fraudulent system that they call a democracy. Both parties are the same. If you don't understand that, then you've been swindled. You've been fooled by the talking heads that you tune into. Got you focused on ideal politics and all this other shit. Okay, we'll address that later on. Right now, let's focus on bring the fucking jobs back. And I'm talking bring the fucking jobs back. All of them. And dismantle America's scammy healthcare system and make it a universal healthcare system. Get rid of all these for-profit medical companies that are swindling, that are defrauding people. America needs a system, if they want to have a true capitalist system, not a capitalism's in a crisis in America. It's a failure. Capitalism has failed in America. It's failed. It's that simple. It has failed. When you see the levels, and I wrote about this, I'm the first person to have written about this during that period in my 2006 book. I wrote about the wealth and income disparity before the financial crisis, before these economists were writing about it. Oh, they wrote it after the financial crisis, they start writing about it. Fucking idiots. When you have the level of wealth and income disparity that you're seeing in America, You've got guys with just insane amounts of money like Elon Musk at $400 billion for doing what? And Bezos and all these guys. There's a problem, folks. Something has gone wrong when you have people that have made their money off the backs of taxpayers. And they've not just made a lot of money, they've made insane amounts of money. That's theft. That's why I say capitalism is in a crisis, and the stock market destroyed capitalism. That's the sad reality. Okay, the stock market and related forces. If you can imagine, the stock market is related to what? What do you think this whole trade issue and globalization came from? The greedy parasites, the greedy money worshippers on Wall Street, corporate America, who bought off Washington to send all the jobs overseas to get more profits for their shareholders. Not you, not myself, who own 100, 1,000, or even 5,000 shares of some stock. That's fucking nothing. I'm talking about people who own millions upon millions of shares. The real fucking owners of these companies. And then, of course, you see all the billionaires. All these guys on Wall Street, the fund managers. How are they all billionaires? Did you ever wonder that? Well, they must be great investors. No, it doesn't work that way, folks. I'm not even going to get into that right now, but the bottom line is this. There are certain things, and I wrote about this 20 fucking years ago. It's just common sense. There's certain things that need to be provided by the government. Oh, get the government out of the way. Yeah. This is why you've got all this nonsense that's been going on. Get the government out of the way. Folks, that narrative, if you think the government does everything bad and you want the government out of the way, you're digging your own fucking grave unless you're a very wealthy person. It stands to hurt you when you're accepting this stupid idea that the government is bad in everything. There's certain things in a society that are best handled by the government. And those things are typically basic necessities.